Welcome to LEWCO Line Shaft Conveyor 101. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to utilize our presentation. My name is Rob Wills, Business Development Manager for LEWCO Conveyors. Today's session is monitored by Technical Sales Associate Jason Fresh. Our objective today is to provide a basic understanding of line shaft driven live roller conveyor. Thanks for being willing to listen. During this presentation, we'll show you how line shaft conveyor works and where it performs best. We'll talk about where to apply it and planning and pricing your conveyor layout. We'll introduce the LEWCO Line Shaft Conveyor modular design concepts. How line shaft conveyor works. I know some of you are new to line shaft conveyor as a live roller conveyor, and some of you are chiseled veterans. I hope to keep you all entertained at least for the next 27 minutes. Most of you are not familiar with LEWCO's line shaft conveyor product line. By the end of this presentation, we'll hope to be able to discuss the basic concepts with your coworkers and with your customers. I'm going to review a few of the components in line shaft conveyor. These are the basic components you'd see in every one of any line shaft conveyor, quite frankly. And when I say line shaft conveyor, what I'm referring to is a conveyor. It's a powered roller conveyor that has a shaft running underneath right here. In our case, it's near one side channel. It runs parallel with the direction of travel. Each of the carrying rollers on top are characterized by having one or two grooves in them in order for the drive belts, we call them drive belts, to power each roller individually from the rotating line shaft. The drive belts are held in place and kept in place below the rollers by the drive spools and the collars. And I'll show you that in the next video. And of course, with any powered roller conveyor, we're going to need a conveyor frame to support the rollers and a drive to power the rollers. Got a video here of the cross section that we just reviewed. Here's our conveyor frame. You can't see the drive in this particular case, but the conveyor roller with the groove in it, this is our polyurethane drive belt. The blue component there is the spool. The black component you can barely see is what we call the collar that holds the spool in place. And the shaft, of course, is located right there. I'm going to start this up for a minute, and you can see that all five of those components are turning as soon as it starts. There we go. You can see they're all turning. Now what I've done right there is I've grabbed a hold of the roller to give you an example of what happens when with line shaft conveyor, one of the unique features of line shaft conveyor. When I start the video again, you'll see that the roller is stopped, the belt is stopped, the blue spool has stopped, but the shaft and the collar are still rotating. The advantage to line shaft conveyor is just that you can stop rollers, certain sections of rollers using devices like pneumatic brakes, and still keep the motor turning and keeping the motor operating. So some products can move and some cannot move. You can see that it's stopped, and now the blue spool is turning and the belt is turning. Repeating again, you can see how those work. The shaft is turning, and that's what drives the roller. Okay, next slide, Rob. There we go. Some of the line shaft conveyor advantages. Oftentimes we're compared against a belt-driven live roller conveyor or a chain-driven live roller conveyor. There's various styles of conveyor similar to that in the marketplace. The nice thing about the economical advantages to line shaft conveyor is it usually takes fewer drives to drive the same amount of conveyor. Because there's no belts below the rollers to track, there's no take-ups to maintain, it's easier to keep the conveyor operating. There's no frame wear either. Many times you'll hear rollers rattling in the conveyor frames as the belt drives underneath them. Because the line shaft powered rollers are held in place by the tension of the polyurethane drive belt, the rollers don't rattle in the frame, so the frames don't wear. It's very clean. Comparatively speaking, it almost looks like gravity roller conveyor when you're on top. With the exception of the shaft and the drive components, it's all open underneath. We can drive through curves and spurs, all with one motor. Again, one of the biggest features of line shaft conveyor in reducing the drives. And because the rollers are held in place, it's quieter than traditional power roller conveyor. In addition to that, especially with LEWCO's modular design in line shaft conveyor, which we'll review in a little bit, it's flexible in its installation and application possibilities. You can add or subtract modules easily. Our line shaft conveyor items are designed to be in modules that you can connect together by coupling the shafts together. It's flexible in the standpoint that you can skew the rollers to adjust the position or location of your product on the conveyor, especially if it has to go in front of a labeler or if it has to go underneath a scanner or some other, maybe a barcode reader. You drive multiple lanes and directions with one drive. You can have one conveyor, one motor. It could actually go in separate directions without, just by the nature of the design, without having to change the position of the starter. We can, for the same reason, with optional features, we can speed up or slow down rollers, sections of the conveyor within one unit without having to add a separate motor. We can incline and decline up to 10 degrees. These applications must be reviewed by applications engineering to be sure that, that the product and the application you're trying to do will fit in line shaft conveyor. As I showed you, the rollers can start and stop independent of the running of the motor. Again, the holy grail of power roller conveyors is to be able to move your products and stop your products on the same conveyor line without turning the motors on and off. One of the other features is standard line shaft conveyor is a low pressure style of powered roller conveyor, meaning your products reach the end of the conveyor and against the stop or stop against a fixed stop. The forward pressure is reduced because the drive force is limited by the tension of the drive belts. Removing drive belts is a standard feature of line shaft conveyor if you need to lower that pressure. I'm going to show you a video of a conveyor, of a line shaft conveyor that's running, or it will be running in a minute. One of the things I wanted to point out is line shaft, and actually I'm going to do something in here that I don't want you doing at home, but I'll get to that in a minute. Line shaft conveyor, you can see there's grooves on the rollers, and that's where the shaft is located below the rollers. Each of the rollers are independently driven by a polyurethane drive belt. LEWCO's standard line shaft location is on the left-hand side of the conveyor. In this particular application, the customer needed a right-hand side line shaft because of the direction of the transfer at the end. I'll get to that in a minute. What I'm going to do is start the video, and I'm going to show you that line shaft conveyor is safe, especially when compared to the positive drive of chains or belts. The friction style drive between the shaft and the roller allow for the rollers to stop turning when enough pressure is introduced on the rollers. Get the video started here for a second. So when you grab a hold of a roller, it's safe. You don't have to, there's no moving parts below the roller that you can get your hand caught in. I wouldn't recommend doing this at home, just demonstrating that it's safe. Again, putting where the drive belts are, it's not a comfortable situation, but it doesn't hurt. So you can use this conveyor where people are working next to the conveyor without risk. I'm going to pause this for a second and talk about the belt transfer. LEWCO's line shaft belt transfer, you can see designated by the orange belt, is slave driven from the main line shaft. The belts go in the same direction as the rotation of the shaft. The design of our transfers are such that you can order it so that it goes in the opposite direction without additional cost. All we have to do is specify it. In this case, it's going to be going in the same direction. The transfer belts stay the same length. They're not stretched in the movement of the transfer, thus keeping the life of the belts the life of our belts are significantly increased over competitors' designs because of that. Our standard transfers have 4 belts in them on 6-inch centers. As you can see, maybe it's hard to see in the video, but those belts are traveling at 1.5 times the speed of the conveyor rollers. And that's, again, by our standard design. We have John lower the transfer down. It's a pneumatically raised and lowered device. Generally, it comes with a solenoid-operated air valve in order to make it go up and down. So we just looked at some of the components and how to identify line shaft conveyor and how it works. Well, how does that help you? Where can you use line shaft conveyor? There's many places you can use line shaft conveyor, especially LEWCO's line shaft conveyor. In warehousing and distribution centers, in manufacturing environments, and order fulfillment lines. Oftentimes it's the main takeaway conveyor from a pick to light or some type of pick to identification system. Line shaft conveyor is unique in its ability to operate in a progressive assembly line operation because the conveyor can be running, areas of the conveyor can be running separate of areas of other areas of the conveyor being stopped. Parcel handling, of course, utilizing products that are shippable in the parcel industry, up to 75 pounds. The best application is a dry industrial environment. Although we do have line shaft conveyors installed in wet environments, we've got them in dirty environments. Don't want to restrict that. These are ideal applications. Any applications that you want to consider outside of that environment, you get a hold of LEWCO's application engineers and we'll be happy to help. Speaking of applications, what are the ideal line shaft conveyor applications? Something where we're handling a flat bottom product that weighs between 5 and 75 pounds. Corrugated boxes or flats or totes, trays, and other flat bottom products, case goods are perfect candidates for line shaft conveyor. Between the range of 5 pounds and 75 pounds. We have the ability to handle more or less than that. We just want to discuss the application with you before you proceed discussing it with your customer. LEWCO's standard line shaft conveyor widths range from 13 inches between the frame to 39 inches between the frame. Again, we can go narrower than that with special considerations and wider than that with enhanced drive capacity and larger diameter rollers. As with any powered roller conveyor, ideally you want to have 3 powered rollers under the smallest product. That's going to provide you with the highest level of success. Additionally, line shaft conveyor is a low pressure accumulation. I discussed that a little while ago. The forward force of the rollers generate low pressure of products accumulated on the conveyor. That's standard. By adding brake zones and photo sensors, we can make the line shaft conveyor have zero pressure, non-contact accumulation. It's a zone-based system, meaning that we're going to break the conveyor up into zones longer than your longest product and allow those zones to start and stop through the logic in the sensors. Speaking of logic in the sensors, we can either use indexing release, which is one at a time off the end of your conveyor or into a device or an area, or slug release, where we can release all of the products accumulated in the conveyor at one time. It's just a matter of specifying it. Other times when it's ideal to use line shaft conveyor is when you're desiring to run powered curves and or transfers and utilize fewer drives, or in this case operate off of the same drive. That's another ideal line shaft conveyor application. I've talked about line shaft conveyor and its construction. Now I want to talk about why you would want to use LEWCO line shaft conveyor. As one of the basic paradigms within LEWCO line shaft conveyor is we chose to use a modular construction style of line shaft conveyor. All of our components are modular. We start out with a drive module. All of our drives are 2 foot long and the rollers are in 3-inch centers, regardless of the centers in the rest of the main conveyor. This allows us to make one style of drive, keeps our costs economically and competitive with other line shaft conveyor and belt powered roller manufacturers. Our transfer modules are 3 foot long. The standard module, if you pick it, are 3 foot long and they have 4 belts and 12 rollers in it, effectively resulting in 3-inch roller centers. Our crossover drive modules, which we haven't talked about that, we'll get to that in a minute, are 1 foot long and the rollers are in 3-inch centers. The intent of a crossover module is to get the line shaft from one side of the conveyor to the other. Spur and merge modules can be independent or they can be slave driven from the main line. Our gate modules, which include a 2 foot pivot section and a floor support at the hinge point. You can kind of see one of those right up here. Our brake zones can be installed almost anywhere in our conveyor sections and are able to stop all the rollers in an intermediate section of conveyor. LEWCO's line shaft conveyor frames are designed to be flexible in your installation. We've got holes on the top and the bottom flanges full length on both sides, with additional extra crossmember holes for mounting devices such as brakes or stops in the conveyor frame itself. This allows for you to modify, add devices, support them off of the conveyor frame because the holes are already there. one of the key features of LEWCO's line shaft conveyor, and this was important to me, that all of the rollers are driven directly from the line shaft intermediate sections of the conveyor. There's no slave-driven rollers. That means you get true positive drive out of our intermediate line shaft conveyor sections. Additionally, there's options that can be done to the line shaft conveyor, the rollers specifically, to have different roller types for different applications. Whether it's for cleanliness or product noise, we offer orange polyurethane sleeves, we can get plastisol dip coating, we can get black Ultrex sleeves, white HDPE sleeves. All of these are options available from LEWCO depending upon your application. I described briefly the components that the modules that LEWCO conveyor has. I'm going to give you a visual of each one, a brief visual of each one. This is, again, our standard drive module. It's 2 foot long. The conveyor frame is 12 inches deep, and the rollers are a 1/4 inch above the top of the frame. That's the limiting factor on our line shaft conveyor. We don't have multiple various drives. We have one standard 2 foot long drive module. The rollers are on 3-inch centers, and there's safety axles between the rollers. Another good feature of LEWCO's line shaft drive module is you have access to the drive components from the top of the conveyor. You can stand along the conveyor and take the rollers off if you're a maintenance person, and you've got access to the drive if you need to do some adjustment, changing, lubrication. Those are standard maintenance requirements on all power roller conveyor. But it's easy to use because you've got access from the top of the conveyor. And again, one of the key components in line shaft conveyor is a tapered roller curve module. There's a shaft that runs below the rollers, just like a regular line shaft conveyor. In a 90-degree example, you can't see it here. They're connected with 4 U-joints, allowing the shaft to rotate and continue to rotate and drive all the rollers around the curve. LEWCO's line shaft curves come with 20 tapered rollers as a standard. The rollers are tapered to help your product navigate the curve. When you think about LEWCO line shaft conveyor, we think about the location of the shaft relative to the direction of travel. LEWCO's standard construction is a shaft on the left-hand side. In this image, this curve, if the direction of travel is in this direction around the curve, it's a left-hand shaft because you're the box, going down the conveyor. The shaft is on your left-hand side. The same conveyor could be a right-hand curve. We just have to identify it that way, and we twist the belts the proper way in order to work in your application. A right-hand curve would be where the product comes in this way and exits that side. The shaft then would be on the right-hand side of the conveyor. Again, the tapered rollers in the curve help your boxes navigate around the curve. Our standard radius is 32.5 inches to the inside, up to 31 inch between the frame. If we're over 31 inch between the frame, we add more rollers, and our inside radius increases to 48 inches. And all these specifications are downloadable from our website, and I'll show you that in a few minutes here. Again, one of the benefits of line shaft conveyor is a transfer module. In this case, it's LEWCO Line Shaft Round Belt Transfer Module. 19 indicates 1.9 diameter rollers. There's 3 different standard styles. The first primary style is what we saw in the video. It's an internal belt transfer where the belts stay completely within the between frame of the conveyor. We have an external belt transfer module where the belts extend out 6 inches beyond the side of the frame for maybe narrower products or smaller products, or to interface with a particular component or device where you need the belts extended beyond the side of the conveyor frame. We also offer as a standard a line shaft round belt transfer crossover style, meaning one single transfer transfers product from one lane to the other. In this particular case, this transfer is slave driven from here. The flow of product would be into there, and it would transfer across to there. All of that is driven with one motor. The other side could be driven with that same motor with the addition of an optional crossover module. That's not shown. Or with a separate motor, and that line shaft over there is driving the rollers in that section of conveyor. All of our transfer modules are 3 foot long. All of our standard transfer modules have belts on 6-inch centers. Our standard transfer module is 12 inches deep, matching our drive depth, and the rollers are a 1/4 inch above the frame. The transfer belts raise up to a 1/2 inch above the top of the rollers, and the transfer belts drive at 1.5 times the speed of the main conveyor. Again, our standard construction will include a double solenoid operated air valve that is mounted in plumb to the transfer. Oh, that was easy for me to say. There we go. Spur modules or merge modules. In this case, for LEWCO's line shaft conveyor terminology, our spurs are 30 degrees, and it's when you're diverting a product off of the main line. We'll call this piece of conveyor here the main line. This is the spur module. The main line is driven with its own motor, and it can slave drive the spur module, or the spur module can be slave driven by an upstream motor. In order to complete this transition, you need an optional device, which isn't shown here, whether it's a pop-up wheel diverter or a power face diverter, or a flat face diverter. We don't necessarily need power face in order to get those products off at 30 degrees. These we generally require, when applying these in your layouts, we'd like to have our application engineers assist you with the layout and make sure you have the right components in there. When you need to bring two lines together, our merge module merges products at 45 degrees. Again, this merge module can be driven by the conveyor upstream, or it can be slave driven from the main line conveyor. There's either an optional guardrail or turning wheel goes on here, and traffic control is something that needs to be included when you have a merge module where you have both lines running at the same time. Our application engineering department will be happy to assist in those applications. Line shaft hinge gate module. Line shaft conveyor allows us, because of the shaft underneath and our special design spring coupling, the line shaft gate, it'll allow a personnel access to walk through the conveyor, and when the gate is not up, when the gate's all the way down, all the rollers are powered. You can't power through this gate. The conveyor that's downstream up here would have to be powered with its own motor if you want, but how it works is the line shaft gate comes with a 2-foot pivot section with the shaft and the coupling to connect the line shaft gate drive. The gates are 3 foot long or 4 foot long, plus the 2 foot long intermediate section. The gates are lifted manually and assisted by gas shocks. And again, I talked about all of these are available. The spec sheets are available for download from LEWCO's website. I've got a link here. Be happy to email it to you. But if you go to LEWCO's website, you'll click on conveyors, you click on products, and it'll get you to this website, or to get you to this page. And our line shaft standard construction spec pages are downloaded individually by module right here. Okay, I'm going to review. We're going to go through a price example and see and actually use this customer sales portal in order to come up with a price on our conveyor. First things first, when you're using when you want to come into the portal to get pricing, is you need to have a layout. You have to have some kind of sketch, some kind of basis, so you know where your conveyor is going to go. Some of you that are listening may or may not have access to the sales portal. If you're qualified to have access to the sales portal, you can contact conveyorsales@lewcoinc.com. There's some forms you need to complete, and we'll be happy to cooperate. In the next slide, I'll have a sample conveyor layout, and then we'll determine the price. This is actually a pretty simple conveyor layout for line shaft conveyor. Our customer requested 21-inch between frames, 3-inch roller centers, and 90 feet per minute fixed speed, 38-inch elevation, operating on 460-volt 3-phase power. What they've asked for is to have a curve, 90-degree curve, that feeds a 204-inch long section of straight roller conveyor. Keep in mind that our line shaft curves all have a 12-inch tangent on each end. So we've got a 32.5-inch radius, 12-inch tangent on each end. What I would suggest in this layout is to determine the conveyor curve module price first, and then you'll see when we get in there we can price up a 204-inch long drive section to connect to it. So here we go. Whoops, that's not the one I wanted to do. There we go. I want to get over here and bring this over. I am hoping that today it works and you can all see our customer portal login. I'm going to work on a quote. on behalf of LEWCO Conveyors. I'm going to generate a new quotation. In this case, I'm going to pick the items that I want to have. All of LEWCO's standard components are available in our sales portal for those who have access. In this case, we'll pick a line shaft conveyor. We'll click on Configure. What's going to pop up is a step-by-step process of going through the modules in line shaft conveyor. The drop-down box here shows LEWCO standard modules. How we're going to proceed with this unit is we're going to do the curved line shaft first, and then we're going to do the straight line shaft conveyor second, and I'll get to that at the end, why it's a better way to do that. We picked our line shaft curve module. Our customer had requested 21-inch BF, if you remember, and the degree was 90 degrees. All of the items that are phantomed out are standard construction. Our standard construction is precision grease pack bearings in our rollers. Our standard construction is galvanized steel rollers. Options are available, but not in the configurator. Our standard construction is 15 pounds per drive belt. If you recall, and I wish I had the little image up here, but I don't, the line shaft in this case was on the left-hand side, because we were being the box, going around the curve, and a left-hand curve. Customer had requested 90 feet a minute. We'll make it go 90 feet a minute. Now, LEWCO's line shaft price module includes, and this is important, the horsepower requirement. What you'll be able to do is add the horsepower requirements up for your components to make sure that you meet the needs of the drive, or you have enough drive to meet the needs of the conveyor, I should say. So in this case, it's almost a little bit over a quarter horsepower because we're going 90 feet a minute. We might as well add supports. It makes life easy if to do it here rather than separate, and I don't have enough time to do it separate. So we'll go, and they ask for 38-inch elevation. LEWCO's standard configuration will get you a level conveyor, so the default ending elevation matches your in-feed elevation. At LEWCO Conveyors, we only use heavy-duty supports in order to support all of our powered conveyors. Now, in this case, now we've got it done. Right now, we've got a complete curve module listed over here. The model string is listed over here. We'll finish that. We can see the price right there. And now we've got our curve module. In order to get our straight piece of conveyor, we'll configure another component. In this case, we'll go with straight line shaft conveyor. Zone accumulation. In this case, we didn't have zone accumulation. 1.9 16 gauge roller is our standard. We wanted 21-inch between frame. The rollers were on 3-inch centers. If you remember, the conveyor length was 204 inches, at least I remember. And that gives us a length of 17 feet. Galvanized steel roller is our standard. Standard drive belt is 15 pounds per roller. Line shaft is on the left-hand side. Now realize it doesn't change the price if it's left-hand or right-hand. It just defines the model string for when the conveyor becomes in order. That's the purpose of that. If you need to change that afterwards, you can change that afterwards. The price won't change. As you can see, the horsepower requirement for the 17 feet of conveyor was 0.367. If we remember to add the 0.259 horsepower from the curve to this, and we should remember to do that because it becomes important, we'll need to upgrade our horsepower from half horsepower to 3/4. Customer had asked for a 3-phase motor. Totally enclosed fan cooled is our standard construction. There are options: energy efficient, inverter duty, and in the rare occasion we need a power off brake. Standard blue conveyor. We might as well add our supports to this component, or this module, excuse me. 38-inch elevation, 38-inch elevation, 10-foot nominal. There's no reason to put supports any closer than that. Again, at LEWCO Conveyors, our powered conveyors are supported by heavy-duty supports. Now we'll finish this component, and now what we've got is, by putting these two prices together, we'll have our complete line shaft conveyor unit. There's options you can add to that in the future: guardrail, end stops, the motor controls. Those can all be added later. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today to our line shaft presentation.